Part 1. The daytime broke. I don't remember the exact moment it happened, only the silence that followed. It was a silence unlike anything I had ever heard. Heavy, absolute, endless. One moment, I was walking through the city. Cars moved. People talked. The sun shone through the glass of tall buildings. And then, suddenly, everything stopped. A single second stretched into eternity. A bird frozen in the air. A drop of rain hanging between sky and earth. A child's laughter suspended mid-breath. At first I thought it was my imagination. Maybe I had fainted. Maybe I had died. But then I moved. I blinked. I breathed. And the world around me did not. Time had stopped. I walked through the streets, my footsteps echoing like thunder in a dead world. The air felt thick, like walking through glass. Every detail was painfully clear. The reflection of sunlight in frozen windows, the dust hanging motionless in the air, the still faces of strangers caught between expressions. I shouted. No one answered. I screamed until my throat burned, but the sound seemed to vanish into nothing. Then I saw myself. Across the street, standing perfectly still, was me. Same face, same clothes, same eyes, but older. His expression was calm, almost sorrowful. I blinked, and he was gone. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just trapped in a world where time had stopped. Time itself was broken. Days, or what I thought were days, passed. But there was no sunrise, no sunset. Only an eternal twilight, stuck between moments. I tried to sleep, but sleep never came. I tried to count the seconds, but seconds no longer existed. I wandered for what felt like forever. The silence became my only companion. I spoke to statues of people, to reflections in windows, to the sky that never changed. And somewhere, in that endless stillness, I began to lose my sense of who I was. Was I still alive? Was this death? Or was I dreaming inside the last second of existence? Eventually, I found myself standing at the edge of the city. The world ended there, literally. The road just stopped, cut cleanly, fading into a white void. Like the unfinished edge of a painting, I threw a rock into the whiteness. It vanished silently, swallowed by the void. And then, for the first time in what felt like centuries, I heard something, a faint hum, a vibration, deep and distant, like the sound of a heartbeat. I followed it. The hum grew louder as I walked. I crossed highways, forests, frozen rivers. Everywhere the world stood still, but the hum pulsed beneath it, rhythmic, alive. Finally, I found the source. A mirror, standing in the middle of an open field, glowing faintly in the air. I stepped closer. My reflection stared back at me. But it wasn't me. He was older again. Eyes tired, face marked by years I hadn't lived. He spoke, though his lips didn't move. The voice came from inside my head. "You broke time," he said. "Or maybe time broke you." I didn't understand. "What does that mean?" I asked. But he didn't answer. He simply raised his hand and touched the surface of the mirror. I reached out too. Our fingers met, and the world shattered. Light exploded around me. I fell through images, memories, moments of my life, but all in reverse. I saw my childhood dissolve, my friends vanish, my parents become young again. My first steps turn into my first cries. And then I saw something strange. A moment I didn't remember. I was sitting at a desk, staring at a computer screen, typing the words, "The day time broke." It didn't make sense. Was I remembering the future? When I woke, if that word even means anything, I was back in the city. But something was different. The air moved again. The sun was setting. Time was flowing once more. People walked past me, unaware of anything unusual. The world was normal. Except for one thing. Every clock showed a different time, and every reflection I saw smiled before I did. I thought maybe it was over. Maybe I had dreamed it all. But then late that night, as I looked at the stars, they began to move backward. Part 2. The Echoes of the Future. The stars were moving backward. At first it was slow, barely noticeable, then faster, like the universe was rewinding itself. I stood there, frozen under the night sky, watching constellations unravel. Time was reversing, not around me, but through me. Memories flickered inside my mind like static on a broken screen. I remembered things that hadn't happened yet. A house I never lived in, a voice I never heard, a woman's laughter echoing in rooms that didn't exist. I started walking again, but the city felt wrong. Buildings shifted when I turned away. Street signs changed their names. I saw the same people walking in loops, repeating gestures, repeating smiles. And then I saw her. She was sitting on a bench, her hair glowing under the reverse starlight. Everything else moved backward, but she didn't. She looked directly at me and whispered, "You came back too early." I froze. Her voice, I knew it. It was the same voice from the memory that wasn't mine. The laughter in the house I never lived in. "Who are you?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Someone you haven't met yet. But you will." Before I could answer, she stood and walked toward me. The air bent around her like time itself was bending to make space. She reached out her hand and said, "You broke the mirror before it was built." I didn't understand. "What mirror?" She placed her hand on my chest. "Your heart," she said. "That's where it all started." And then she was gone, vanished into a pulse of light that rippled through the street. Suddenly, I was somewhere else. Not the city, not the field, but a place made entirely of light and sound. A timeless void filled with fragments of my own memories floating like dust. I walked through them, and each one whispered something different. Voices, all my own, speaking from different moments in time. I remember this. I will forget this. I haven't lived this yet. It was like standing in the center of my own consciousness, watching it fold in on itself. In the distance, I saw a figure. Me again, the older version, the one from the mirror. He was standing beside a massive hourglass, suspended in midair. The sand inside didn't fall. It hovered between top and bottom, trembling endlessly. He looked at me with eyes filled with exhaustion. "You still don't understand, do you?" he said. "Understand what?" "That you didn't survive time breaking," he said. "You caused it." I shook my head. That's impossible. I was just walking. I didn't do anything. He sighed. You tried to fix your life. Every mistake, every regret, every what if. You wished to go back, and your wish became real. But time isn't meant to be rewritten by emotion. I felt my pulse quicken. So, this is my fault? He nodded slowly. When you tried to change one moment, you broke all of them. I looked at the hourglass. What happens if the sand falls again? His expression darkened. If it falls, time restarts. But not the way you remember it. Everything changes. Every memory resets, including you. For a long moment, I stared at the trembling sand. Then I asked, why are you telling me this? Why help me? He smiled sadly. Because I'm you. And I remember what it's like to be lost. He stepped closer. The only way to heal time is to stop chasing what's gone. Let go. His words echoed like a wave. Let go. And then the hourglass shattered. Light poured through the cracks in reality. The ground beneath me dissolved into swirling fragments of moments. Birthdays, arguments, laughter, tears. Each one flashed before my eyes like sparks. I tried to hold on to something, anything, but everything slipped through my fingers. Voices surrounded me again, all my own. I shouldn't have said that. I should have stayed. I wish I could do it over. The regret was crushing. And yet, somewhere in that chaos, I felt her voice again, soft, distant, calling my name. I reached for it, through the light, through the storm of memories, until I saw her face again, the woman from the bench. She was standing on the other side of the light. Behind her I saw a house by the sea, waves frozen mid-crash. The sound of laughter inside. I took a step forward, but she shook her head. Not yet, she said. You still don't remember what you came here to find. What did I come to find? She smiled gently. The moment you stopped being afraid. Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on a beach. The ocean moved again. The wind touched my skin. Time, it was flowing again. But the world was different. The sky was darker. The sea quieter. And when I looked down, I saw something carved into the sand beside me. A single sentence. You were never meant to stay. Part 3. The Fractured Hours. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in my bed. The morning light filtered through the curtains, soft and silent, as if the world had reset itself overnight. But something was off. The air felt heavier, slower. Even the sound of my breathing echoed as if the room itself was struggling to exist. I turned my head toward the clock. It was 7:14, and it stayed 7:14. The second hand didn't move. For a few seconds, or maybe minutes, I just stared at it, expecting it to tick, to breathe, to remind me that time was still alive. But nothing happened. When I stood up, I noticed the sunlight outside wasn't moving either. Dust particles floated in midair like frozen stars. The wind had stopped. The world was still. I walked to the window. Cars on the street were motionless, people caught mid-step, mid-breath, mid-thought. A woman's scarf hung in the air like it was trapped between moments. And that's when I saw myself, across the street, standing completely still, looking directly at me. The other me wasn't frozen. He blinked. He smiled. "Finally," he mouthed through the glass. I backed away from the window, heart pounding in my chest. The sound echoed unnaturally loud in the silent world. Then, suddenly, the other me moved. He crossed the street, each step rippling through the frozen air like cracks in glass. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. He reached the door of my building and vanished into the hallway below. A second later, I heard footsteps climbing the stairs. When he opened my door, I felt my stomach twist. He looked exactly like me, but older, with faint shadows under his eyes and a faint, knowing grin. "Don't panic," he said. His voice sounded calm, too calm. "You're experiencing a fracture. It's what happens when time tries to correct itself." I couldn't speak. My throat was dry, my mind filled with static. He walked around the room, touching objects, as if testing reality. "Every time you saw the future," he continued, "you pulled a thread. One small change, one thought, one feeling, and now time is collapsing to fix it." "I don't understand," I whispered. He looked at me. "You weren't supposed to watch. You weren't supposed to remember." Something in his tone chilled me. "Who are you?" I asked. He smiled again. "I'm what you become when you keep looking." Then he placed a hand on my shoulder, and a sudden wave of cold light burst through me. I saw flashes, hundreds of them. My own life unraveling in fragments, my childhood, my first heartbreak, the day I died, the day I was born again, and then darkness. When I woke, I was in a place that looked like my city, but drained of color. Everything was gray. The sky, the buildings, even the people, if they were people, moved like ghosts. Time here didn't flow, it drifted. I could feel it like a current, pulling me forward, backward, sideways. I wandered through the streets, searching for something familiar, until I saw a figure standing under a flickering streetlight. It was him again, the older me. "Welcome to the broken hour," he said. "This is where all timelines bleed together." I tried to speak, but my voice came out distorted, stretched like sound underwater. "Why am I here?" "Because you refused to let go," he said softly. "You kept watching, even when you knew it was destroying you." The light above him flickered faster. Around us, shadows began to move, tall, thin figures with hollow faces, whispering in tones that sounded like reversed speech. "They're echoes," he explained, "remnants of choices that never happened. Every regret, every hesitation, every time you wondered what could have been. They live here." The shadows crept closer, whispering louder. I recognized some of their words, my own thoughts, looping endlessly back at me. "What happens now?" I asked. He looked at me with pity. "Now, you decide. You can let time rebuild itself, or you can stay and become one of them." The ground began to shake. The frozen city cracked like a mirror. Through the fractures, I could see other worlds, alternate lives, different versions of myself. In one, I was rich. In another, I was dead. In another, I never discovered the future at all. Each fragment pulled at me, tempting, begging. And then I heard a voice, not his, not mine, but something beyond both. Choose or be erased. The older me reached out a hand. Take it, he said. I'll help you remember what matters. But as I reached for him, one of the cracks split wider, swallowing the streetlight, the buildings, everything. A blinding light filled the world. Then silence. When it cleared, I was standing in a hospital room. Machines beeped quietly. On the bed lay me. My body was pale, weak, and hooked to wires. Beside the bed sat my mother, crying silently. The clock on the wall read 7:14. It hadn't moved. I realized then that I had never woken up at all. Time had broken, because I had died trying to control it. The older me appeared in the corner, fading slowly. You see now, he whispered. The future was never meant to be watched, only lived. The light dimmed. The clock ticked once, just once, then stopped forever. And for the first time since everything began, I felt peace. Part 4. When time finally slept, I drifted in silence. There was no sound, no air, no feeling of falling or rising, just a calm void stretching in every direction. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. The pain was gone, the noise was gone, and the weight of every question I ever asked had vanished. Then, somewhere in that endless stillness, I heard a heartbeat, slow, steady, familiar. It wasn't mine. It was the heartbeat of the world itself. Images flickered like dying stars, moments from my life replaying in fragments. My first laugh, the warmth of sunlight on my face, the people I loved but never truly saw. Each one faded into the next, softer and softer, until they became nothing but light. And then I saw him, the older me, standing across a vast white horizon. He wasn't smiling this time. It's over, he said. Time's done its part. Now you can rest. Is this death? I asked. My voice echoed without sound. He nodded, or something beyond it. Call it whatever you need to. I looked around. So, this is where it all ends? He shook his head slowly. No, this is where you begin. Without clocks, without fear, without the need to know what happens next. He turned, walking toward the fading horizon. As he vanished, his voice lingered in the air. Live, even if it's only in memory. I closed my eyes. The heartbeat faded. The world dissolved into warmth. And somewhere, far away, a clock finally began to tick again, not to measure time, but to remind it that I once existed. The warmth surrounded me like a soft ocean, pulsing gently with every silent breath I took. There was no body, no form, only awareness, drifting freely through light that felt alive. It wasn't heaven, or a dream, or a simulation. It was simply being. I began to remember the smallest things, the ones time had buried beneath the noise of living. The taste of rain when I was a child, the sound of my father's laughter, the way the world smelled before a storm. Tiny moments, forgotten by clocks, but eternal in memory. And then I realized something. The future I had seen was never meant to be a place. It was a reflection, a mirror showing what I had refused to feel while time still belonged to me. All the running, the searching, the fear of missing what comes next, it had all been a distraction. The truth was never hidden in tomorrow. It had always lived quietly inside the seconds I took for granted. As I floated in that endless light, the concept of time began to fade completely. Seconds, minutes, years, they dissolved into one gentle pulse, one eternal heartbeat. The universe itself seemed to breathe, and I breathed with it. I saw the earth spinning below me, calm and blue. Every life, every thought, every dream, threads of the same fabric glowing faintly in the dark. And I understood. Time had never broken. I had. But now, something within me was whole again. The older version of me appeared one last time. Only this time, he wasn't older. He looked just like I once did, eyes full of curiosity instead of fear. He smiled softly and said, "You finally stopped watching." I reached out to him, not to touch, but to thank him. And in that instant, he faded into light. The world around me rippled, and suddenly I was standing in a field at dusk. The air was warm, the grass moved gently with the wind, and the sun hung low, painted in gold. No ticking clocks, no fractures, no echoes of the past. Just peace. Somewhere in the distance a bell rang, once, twice, the sound stretching endlessly across the sky. And as the light dimmed, I whispered to no one and everyone, "I'm ready to stop watching now." The wind carried the words away. The horizon folded into night. And for the first time since the day time broke, I didn't need to know what came next. Only that it was beautiful.